hello and welcome to the launch of the first ever UK Contact Centre Salary and Skills Guide. I'm Lee Hopwood, CEO here at the CCMA, and I'm delighted to be joined by our partners on this project, Page Personnel. So please see on the screen Katie Bevan, who is the Business Director for Page Personnel Customer Service and Contact Centres. I'm going to be finding out a little bit more around Page Personnel in a moment. And I'm also delighted to welcome on screen my colleague Kate. And Kate Law is our Membership and Learning Director, and she spends much of her time talking to our members, talking to you and hearing the challenges that you're going through. And recruitment has been one of those challenges that has been talked about a lot, and no surprises really. So publishing this guide is so exciting for us, and hopefully you're going to get a lot of insight and inspiration from it. The guide itself explores salaries, and that's obviously really clear, and it's something I've wanted to bring to market for the last 2 years. But the industry has been through so much and salaries have been impacted, and what we really want to do is give you a little bit more than just salaries. So there's much more in the guide than that. And it's going to give you so much more visibility about what is going on out there. Kate, why is this guide so important right now?
Oh, wow. Well, the common request that we get from our members on a daily basis is salary and skills guides. So bringing this to life for our membership is just so important right now. Where there's so much competition for frontline advisors, it's a real great opportunity to give employers a guide to provide inspiration and ideas to make sure that their offering is really relevant to retain that talent within their own organisation.
Perfect. And Katie, I have to say a huge thank you to you and to Page Personnel for working with us on this project. Now, Page Personnel, I've known about Page Personnel through the brand Michael Page, and it's all Page Personnel is part of the Page Group, which I believe is a FTSE 200 recruitment organisation, and but Page Personnel is a specialist part of the group. And you've been around for years. Tell me a little bit more about Page Personnel.
Yeah, so you're right. So Page Personnel, we are part of Page Group, and that includes brands such as Michael Page. The Page Personnel side, yeah, been around 40 years. You know, we're global, originated from the UK. The Page Personnel side of things has got a brand under it known as the Secretarial and Business Support Function, and historically that's always been a division that's looked after the contact centre and the customer service opportunities in the market. You know, and that's always been an area of specialism for us. What's changed most recently is, you know, around 2018, so perhaps not that recently, is where we've seen the real need for the contact centre and the customer service side to be separated out as a business in its own right and be able to kind of offer that positioning to the entire market, where we combined the skills, the data, the experience from working for a massive group, and bring that into with our experience in the contact centre industry to create the customer service and contact centre brand that falls underneath Page Personnel. So my specific kind of area within that is working with the management and the leadership population to understand, you know, what challenges businesses might be facing at the moment, you know, short and long term goals and ambitions, that type of thing, which all kind of feeds into that vertical marketplace.
Perfect. And so you guys are bringing so much expertise and experience to the project. It's fantastic. So Katie, looking at the guide, now we've obviously been through it a lot over the last few days, bringing it together, but what can our members expect to see? What's in the guide?
There's so much in the guide. There is so much. I think what you would expect to see is some coverage of around how the industry has changed, how that's created more of an importance for development and retention. What you'll also see on there is what the most in-demand roles are right now. You will see aspects such as how long it could take you to hire a staff member from the point of going to market to the point of making an offer. you'll be able to see some sections on there about what the most in-demand skills are, what's most coveted in our individuals that we're looking for. We'll be looking at the there's a whole section on there about benefits as well, and about what expectations are around benefits. And then, of course, I think the thing that everyone's joined for is information of salaries split by region within the UK.
Perfect. And so it is just so much more than here's a set of salaries, so much more. And I think what struck me as I have been through it is just the number of ideas, and there's so much inspiration in there. There's advice in there about how to get it right, especially with the recruitment challenges that we're going through in 2022. Kate, you've read it.
Yeah.
And there are so many highlights in there, but is there anything in particular you want to call out?
So I think that the thing for me is that there's no surprise that complaint handlers are the most in-demand roles for the industry, especially over the last 2 years. With customers now working from home, so maybe a little bit more time to complain, or maybe being able to look into and access more formal complaints processes. What that means is customer complaints have increased across a number of industries, and we hear that, and we're hearing that in our special interest groups, and when we're talking about complaints and those kind of trends and how the customers are, there are customers' expectations now. So also now that the complaint handlers can tell senior leaders more around what is that customer experience. They understand the friction points of those customer journeys. So that the role of the complaint handler now is the volume has increased, and the customer's expectations have maybe now enhanced more because they're going through that more formal process. But actually now complaint handlers are being used as that data source to really feed into enhancing those customer journeys to help to really improve those going forward. So there's no real surprise there, but I think that they are more in demand because of that change over that last 2-year period. But I know, Katie, it talks in the guide around how fast it takes to offer for some of these roles. So can you share a little bit more around how this has changed to what you've seen historically? If we use, say, the senior permanent roles that we can see within the guide.
Absolutely. I think what we're finding now, and a lot of advice that I imagine many businesses are hearing at the moment, is about having a smooth, well-oiled kind of recruitment process to be able to bring in the right talent, and that's definitely been condensed quite a lot over the last couple of years. We all know if we find someone amazing, we'll be going all out to try and secure that individual to come and work for our business. So the interesting thing that we've seen is on the senior market, which is the market that I spend most of my time in, is the time to hire is actually 15 days. That obviously doesn't include all of the work that goes into, writing the job specs and getting the sign off and everything like that. But once that role is ready to go and hits the market, the average is that there is an offer on that same vacancy after just 15 days. Which is obviously crazy for a senior appointment. Of course, kind of 15 days, that sounds great, doesn't it, to anyone who is sitting here now thinking, well, yeah, that's not to say that the individual that gets that offer, if that's their only offer. Chances are, in the market that we're in now, that's probably one of a handful of offers that they are receiving if they are good enough for an organisation to jump to an offer after 15 days. And naturally, that doesn't include notice period, which is significantly longer from a leadership perspective. One of the interesting conversations I have a lot with the individuals is it's not as much just about making that decision as a knee-jerk reaction because the salary and the job title looks right. I think with this senior population, there's a lot that they need to do in terms of weighing up whether or not they're going to accept that offer as well. So, if they go down this process and they go into a condensed process and they get offered a role after 15 days, of course, we can tick the box and make sure that it's the right salary and everything like that. But what I'm seeing more and more of recently is that the logic has got to match up to the emotion. We all want the leadership team to have joined because they're passionate about the organisation or passionate about the change that they could achieve, you know, within that contact centre. But that salary side of things kind of has to match up, so they don't need to worry about the details, and they can just think about that opportunity and that job. So you probably are looking at about a little bit of extra time at the end there, just for that individual to, you know, to do their process. And, you know, we're seeing that it's taken the 15 days, but that isn't necessarily the full scale process. But it's very interesting, the context that we provide within the guide that talks a lot about that, and a lot about time to hire. And there's some information in there about when, for example, when you receive the most relevant CVs, within how many days, and things like that, which I think would be an interesting read.
You know, it's fascinating, isn't it? And one of the areas that I found really interesting, and as I say, there were many areas, but one of the areas was the in-demand skills. And now, Kate, you were one of these senior leaders. You were customer services director of a major insurance company until just last year. And I suspect that you've seen some changes, and some of the skills that that are suggested in the guide for the different levels of seniority, you know, at the frontline advisor level, management level. What have you seen change from what you're reading in the guide to compared to maybe what you've experienced yourself?
Yes, for me, some of the most in-demand skills have not necessarily changed, but more so the need to adapt. If I use the frontline advisors as an example, is that I found that the need for frontline advisors to be able to demonstrate sincere empathy. If you think about what the pandemic has actually highlighted, is it's highlighting more vulnerable customers. It's highlighted that customers may contact more frequently to check a process, because ultimately they want to make sure they've got it right. They may have a little bit more time on their hands. So that sincere empathy is really kind of important now. So I think that's kind of slightly had to adapt, but empathy has always been there. We've always expected that frontline advisors have always needed to demonstrate empathy when dealing with a customer interaction, to make sure that customer has comfort and they believe that their action is going to be dealt with appropriately. But now that vulnerable customers and the pandemic has given a lot of doubt, or there's a lot of things that have happened that's impacted individuals, it's just had to evolve slightly. So the skill sets have just become more prevalent. And then if I think about the role of the manager, the role has changed with more tasks being added to the daily responsibilities of those managers. They are now not necessarily just working with a team that in a contact center environment, but they are now dealing with individuals that maybe some of the team or all of the team may be working from home. So they may have had to adapt to managing that. How are they managing their team in that remote or hybrid environment? How are they motivating them? How are they developing their people? It's very different than pulling them off for a 15-minute huddle and doing a team building exercise, or sharing an update in that round circle at the end of the desk in the contact center. So that's just changed. I think that the skill sets are there. The role of the manager, some of those duties and tasks of needs to adapt, and probably expanded a little bit more, because they've had to think differently to how they may have done within that typical contact center environment so many years ago.
And you touch on learning and development there, and we'll come on to that in a minute, but it's learning and development is one of the benefits that organizations can offer. And there is a whole section on employee benefits in the report. Katie, how have you seen employee benefits that employers are offering change over the last 12 months? Are you seeing anything that's really coming to the fore at the moment?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're seeing demand from a candidate's perspective has massively risen on what they expect from their employers. You know, I think what we're seeing now is a job isn't necessarily just a place of work anymore. It's a massive part of somebody's life and somebody's lifestyle. And we're starting to see the demand for the benefits to be more tailored to that individual and to their priorities. I think, personally speaking, I am probably seeing more individuals move roles due to lack of training and development and progression opportunities, and due to lack of support, you know, and that's not to say that the organizations aren't offering it, but that individual isn't feeling like what they're offering necessarily is in line with their lifestyle. So that's the aspect of benefits that I've certainly seen the most significant change. I think a number of years ago, a lot of our conversations would have been geared around, you know, possibly work-life balance, number of annual leave, pension. But I believe now it is so much more than that. It's so much more around support and supporting that individual with whatever stage they're at in their life at that time, whether it be a company that offers a better maternity policy or whether that be a company that just offers more flexibility in how to build the benefits. But there's information in the guide, but I would definitely say that the last couple of years has changed perspectives quite significantly in terms of what individuals do expect from their employer. And it really is above and beyond. And there are so many fantastic organizations who've been able to see that standard and meet it. But it certainly has become a little bit of a challenging time to keep up with. You know, I can imagine that there are a lot of individuals in the industry who are racing to keep up with the, you know, with the larger, more established businesses. And, you know, I know from working with our benefits team in Page Personnel and how much we've developed that, you know, and working with our clients from our Michael Page HR division, that benefits and on developing the benefits policy is certainly at the top of every benefits specialist to-do list right now. So I'd say it's a huge thing, and it's definitely something that individuals will use as a bit of a measuring bar when they are going along maybe to interview for an organization, is looking at the benefits. I think in their eyes is a good representative of how that business might, you know, how that business might enable that individual to perform at their best, whether that be offering them support, whether that be training and development to get there. But it all kind of comes under this additional support, which I don't believe was such a big conversation, you know, 3-4 years ago as it is now.
That's interesting, and really interesting what you said a moment ago around that you are seeing some people leave because they're not getting that training development and that career opportunity. And it's certainly something that I'm passionate about, helping people to continue to develop themselves. And Kate, I know that that's something that you're really passionate about, and it's, I mean, I believe it's one of our responsibilities here at the CCMA to really support the industry in this area. And I don't just mean through providing training through the academy, which obviously people can go onto the website and check that out, but to really shine a light on the potential career opportunities within the industry, and also the value of the skills and knowledge that you can gain from working in the industry, and that they can be used not just to help continue to improve customer experiences and help businesses through the contact center, but those skills can be taken to other functions in the business, and the value of being on the front line and listening to customers all the time. My goodness, the amount of knowledge and understanding that you get from that is massive. And you know, that's why we launched Career Talk, which, you know, we do every couple of weeks. But and Kate, I mean, this is something we talk about quite a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I think from my personal experience is that having built a career within the contact center environment and having the mindset when I started all those years ago that I would do that for 6 months, it was a means to an end. I'll go and do this role for 6 months. I'm now 20 years later, my goodness, and having had so many experiences myself, which has not only given me great leadership and business skills, I now understand businesses, I now understand about the contact center environment, I understand more about customer experience and employee engagement, because I've learned that along the way. But I've also gained skills, personal skills for myself, and we hear about so many others like myself who, as long as they've got a good work ethic, and they've gone on to then have really rewarding and enjoyable careers. So I've had the pleasure of meeting and working with so many talented individuals who potentially started off similar to myself, who thought they were going to start in this role for a very short period of time. And then years later, oh, wow, they've actually built a career within this industry and enjoy working in that industry. They don't have that Sunday night dread. They actually are excited for the new week and excited and proud of the brand and the company that they work for.
And the role that they're in. I think being really proud of this such important work that we do. Now, I'm sure that those who have joined us today really want to find out what they should be paying their frontline colleagues. I suspect that's the burning question. And the guide itself does break down the salaries by role. There's 15 roles and by region. And as a result, that would be a huge amount of data to share on this call today. So Katie, Page Personnel has provided all of the data. So please, can you talk us through one of those regions as an example? And I think we're going to put on the screen one of those regional examples.
Brilliant. Yeah. So should we take London as our example then?
That sounds like a really good idea.
We'll look at London. So I'll just give this a minute to load on everyone's screen. Presuming we can all see this now. So what we've got on here is we've got the different types of roles, obviously, of course, as you can see, which does include all of our in-demand roles that we talked about earlier in the guide. We have got on here, low, medium and high. If anyone is kind of sat there now thinking, well, the median side of things, what's that all about? What that is that's probably the highest chance that is where the salary's been offered. So that's the most popular points in which these roles are actually being offered out to, or being paid to, being advertised as in the market at this current time. So if we look at, head of customer experience, for example, you'll see on there, that a relatively low salary in the marketplace, is 72. The average being offered out in London is around 80 with a high of 125. Now, what we're not saying on here is we're not saying that 72 is a bad salary. We're just saying, 72 is being offered out, that is being accepted out there on the marketplace. But it is a little bit more popular that you'll see that happening at 80. And the 125, again, that's not an unreachable number. That also is a salary that is genuinely being offered out. And as we all know, the industry in which we work in, one head of customer experience to the next could be quite different in terms of remit, strategic and and company size. But it should give you kind of a nice range on what you see here. I think this information is incredibly useful to use as a guide. And I think we do want to stress that this is a guide, because what you'll notice is we talk a lot about benefits, we talk a lot about development and opportunities, and we talk a lot about what's in demand. And, just to kind of re-reference the point I mentioned earlier, is that what we are finding is that the balance of all of those things is absolutely crucial. So in an ideal world, your salaries, will be somewhere within this scale, but you will balance that with the other things that you are offering as well, in terms of, opportunity, flexibility, benefits and things like that as well, because the salary alone, we're finding right now, wouldn't be enough to necessarily retain the best talent in the market that we're in now. But, as you can see, this is, this should give you a bit of a good flavour in terms of what's the averages.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Katie. And every year our members, and it's fascinating to see the salaries that are there, and we can now take that off the screen. But every year here at the CCMA, we do the CCMA benchmark. We benchmark across 20 KPIs, and we have been monitoring for the last few years the frontline advisor salaries, and what we're doing in the benchmarking is across the UK. What we've got in the salary guide is broken down by region, so it's a lot more detailed, as you'd expect. But Kate, can you share with us a little bit more about what we've seen as well through the benchmarking?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think for me, looking at the benchmarking data and looking at the comparison year on year is really interesting to see overall, if I look at the overall benchmarking data, to see how performance has changed, how salaries have changed, and all the other KPI metrics that we capture within that. Well, if I look at the particular for the advisor salary, it's increased by around about £2,000 from 2019 to 2021. So actually, is that the right amount to increase by? You know, and that's the question out there, is that, does that justify any change in the role and actually changing the skill set with digital first initiatives and taking out some of those transactional interactions? Is 2,000, is that relevant based on the role of the advisor? But I think it's really interesting to see that £2,000 increase over that period of time. And we have to remember that this is regionalised. It's an average across the UK, so it isn't regionalised, and it's an average across the UK. So that just gives us an idea from that benchmarking data.
Thank you, Kate. And do you know what? It's fascinating. I find this fascinating, and I know that everybody's going to want to get a copy of that that Katie you just shared, and also all the other regions. And we at the end of this session, I'm going to share with you how you can get a copy of the guide. What I would say is that when we send out the guide, or rather, after this session, we are going to email everyone and let you know how you can get access to the guide. And the way you're going to get access, because it is for members only, it is a member benefit. When you request a copy of the guide, please just give us a day or two just to validate who is a member and who isn't. As I say, it is a benefit from being a members. But if you are not a member and you do want to get a copy of the guide, then please do email us either at info@ccma.org.uk, or please do get in touch with Laura Farrell, our engagement manager, who'll be happy to talk to you about not just the salary guide, but all of the other benefits for being a member. I think we are there. I think we have shared as much as we're going to share. There is so much going on in the guide, which I think everybody will find really interesting. Ideas, as we said earlier. And for now, thank you so much for joining us. Katie, thank you and the team at Page Personnel so much for helping us take this to market. It's been a mammoth piece of work, but we've got there, and it's really exciting. Thank you so much. Kate, thank you so much for joining us as well and sharing your insights, especially over what's changed over the last few years. Really appreciate that. So if you want your copy, we will be emailing you straight after this session is finished. And please do click on the request a copy, and we will get that out to you over the next 24 to 48 hours. Thank you so much for joining us. Take care. Have a good rest of the day.